Hello everyone, welcome back. Now that the Miko buffs are actually here, I wanted to do a series of ideally shorter videos just looking at a bunch of team archetypes that I've already talked about before, basically the ones that I would actually play, and just talk about how the buffs actually affect and change how these teams play. We're going to first start off with what I would define as probably the most fun team in the game, which is of course the Raiden Inquisition. For those who don't know, the Inquisition is named for having the big three characters from Inazuma. Now, the God Miko buffs that affect the Inquisition the most include turrets lasting 24 seconds, as well as Kagura's buff lasting 24 seconds, ult not destroying turrets, C2 giving Miko a Neon Fielder plus 200 EM, and of course C4 giving plus 100 ult percent. Technically, there's some of the other buffs that can increase the overall output of this team, but they're either largely irrelevant because of I'm talking of course about like the C4 energy generation. They're either super niche, like how super conducts can make Miko's next turret do more damage, or they actually just suck. For example, the extra hits from EEing while turrets are active, unfortunately. But these are going to be the main 5 to look at. Before we get right into that, I just want to remind you all to like the video and subscribe to the channel because your support, as always, can help combat the YouTube algorithm. First and foremost, we have Miko's turret and Kagura's buff lasting 24 seconds. The big thing about this particular buff is that it basically makes all Miko enjoys actually have access to 1 EEE per rotation gameplay at base. Previously, this was locked behind either having C6 Raiden, I think, and or C2 Shillanen, because that's how you can get cooldown reduction that both of these constellations can provide. Even though the Sweatlord rotation already worked with Miko's ult coming back just in time for her turrets to still be active, the big thing is that we can now both make mistakes and, more importantly, use Shillanen's ult to heal if we actually need to, without running into the problem of ulting with Miko without having all 3 turrets active. This is the breathing room that I mentioned before in previous videos, thus no longer making this really a Sweatlord rotation. You absolutely still can sweat it out as hard as possible if you want, as it does seem like, at least with my level of investment, that using Shillanen's ult results in, let's just call it a 10.5% DPS loss for that rotation. But did you know dying is typically a 113% DPS loss? But you will never find that in sheets or calcs. Meanwhile, a standard rotation, as opposed to the Sweatlord rotation that I outlined, is actually around 20 seconds, with a little bit longer, I guess, if you use your healer's ult. So prior to these buffs, Miko's turrets only lasting 14 seconds would need to be refreshed twice per rotation. Now that they of course last 24 seconds, you only still need to just EE once. And I prefer EEing after ult because that's what I'm used to, but EEing before ult does in fact make perfect sense, as that is a way of ensuring that your ult can do full damage. EEing before ult. Proudly brought to you by one of the other Miko buffs, which is that the ult doesn't destroy turrets anymore. Sara's buff lasts long enough to do either and still have an ult that does just as much damage as possible. I just wouldn't recommend chopping and changing between them for accidental timing purposes. This also means that you can use whoever you want instead of C2 Shillanen, and a few examples include Kazuha doing 2 skills and ult per rotation. That does seem to result in a 24-second rotation, but somehow I still end up with all 3 turrets around when Miko ults again. You probably won't need to use his ult though if you have C1 Shogun at least. Kokomi can skill at the start and then ult just to extend her jellyfish duration. Zhongli's shield lasts 20 seconds, no need to meteor if you already have C1 Shogun. The pillar might actually disappear though, which would be an issue if you're running Tenacity's Zhongli. Since we're getting Charlotte for free in the Fontanalia Film Festival event, at least she can give Miko that aforementioned Superconduct equals more turret damage buff, but her off-field cryo lasts for only a few seconds, so I don't know, maybe Rosaria or perhaps the most cursed Escoffier team would make more sense. Next patch we're also getting Odette, who can enable Stellar Conduct memes. I'm pretty sure she's an off-fielder as well, which should mean that she would be a rather strong contender. And you could just change the team into one of many Yae Miko team comps, including my preferred Hexarray Overload team comp without Chevreuse, actually. And at my level of investment, Hexarray Overload seems to be about as strong as Shilin and Sarah with the buffs, but of course I did notice that it was actually stronger pre-buff. So there we go. That being said though, I did notice a very small cooldown issue with Miko's ult in this team's rotation. Meanwhile, Miko's C2 and C4 have also gotten buffs that increase her DPS. The 200 EM buff, despite not being exactly the most useful thing in the world for this team, unless of course you are bringing or actually fighting Dendro, it does still result in 30% skill damage for Miko. And of course, the C4 buff giving plus 100 ult percent is also pretty good if you went that far into investing into Miko, like I did, as her hold doesn't normally get that much damage percent compared to her skill. That being said though, I will say I suppose that ult percent is getting a little bit diluted by things like the Electro percent cup that you may or may not be using, damage percent from your weapon. For example, Kagura's does have a 12 all damage percent. Thundering Fury, a skill is another one, because Miko's ult has a 90 cost in energy. It is actually a plus 27 damage percent. And then finally, there's other damage percents from other characters. We're talking about characters like Shilinen, Kaz, Nicole with the Hexa scroll set, Chevy, etc. Well, C6 Chevy, etc, etc, etc. Here's a comparison between pre-buff and post-buff Miko in this team. Well, specifically the Shilin and Sama Raiden Inquisition, of course, at C5. I don't remember if I have... I think I have no Bless on Sarah. Oh, I can't tell. I've just pulled Sandrone. I had lost low in 50-50, so I got my Sandrone. I will get Yae Miko soon. Nice. Oh my god, hey, please. Stop missing your crits, please, sweetheart. Please! And also, I didn't want Lowen that much, so it works out good. And why did you even pull for Lowen? Yeah, see, now that A is actually critting, she actually does so much more damage. Sending my blessing so you get that C6 Chi-Chi that you wanted. Thank you. That is unironically a blessing. Thank you. Now that Chi-Chi got her buffs. If I do end up getting that C6 Chi-Chi, didn't crit again, then we will also need to do the Chi-Chi thing for with Astromancer Babaroth with Logistus. Miko, why aren't you critting either? Notice how I'm kind of screwing up the rotation a little bit, but not being like as lightning fast with everything. But because Miko's turrets last for 24 seconds, I have so much breathing room. That is fine. It's actually fine. I could even get knocked around by like a Ruin Guard that does a lot of poise damage. It doesn't matter. There we go. Okay, 127,191 damage. Okay, that's more like it. That is in fact a buff. I think that's actually more than what we were doing before. I mean, it should be. Keep in mind, I don't actually have an optimal build on Miko right now because I'm not using an Electro Cup. I think I'm using an Electro Cup here. Actually, I can find out. Damage percent. Oh no, I'm not. Oh, okay, never mind. I'm not. So okay, so in both here and here, I am not using an optimal build. But as you can see, I'm actually still doing a fair bit more damage. A's damage has remained more or less the same within the margin of error. Sarah's damage has remained less, actually, has gotten significantly lower.
The world remains
but Miko's damage has actually gone up by
but human life is like the
a fair bit.
Dawn, or a bubble rising
from 6 mil, was that 6 million? Yeah, from 6.3 million up to 8.9 million. Yeah. There we go. So yeah, definitely a lot to do with the Miko buffs. Let's talk about artifact options specifically for Miko. A lot of people are going to go for Golden Troop because it is a pretty popular option. It is, of course, a lot of skill damage percent. Now, if you happen to end up getting Miko C4, which, you know, not all of us are going to do, but I'm just going to put it out there, I feel like that kind of balances out how much damage percent Miko has between her skill and her ult. So, at least her ult is not losing out on too much by running Golden Troop. Gilded Dreams is usually a popular option for Miko mains, but it's not going to work at this team unless you're bringing Dendro, I feel like. Potentially, if you're bringing Cryo and therefore doing Stellar Conduct memes, perhaps that might become an option when Odette comes out. For whatever reason though, at my level of investment, my strongest build seems to still be my 2-piece build, specifically the one with an attack cup. I am of course referring to my generalist build, actually seemingly being stronger than any specialist build that I can come up with at the present moment. But I think for those of us who are sticking with C0 Miko, in all likelihood 2-piece, since we're ulting in an Electro Cup, is actually the play. If you have C6 Sara, you can of course then focus on getting more crit rate than crit damage, since Sara can make up the difference for you whenever her buff is of course active on Miko. In conclusion, the most fun team in the game is easier to play, and you can really mix and match with other options if you want. I personally will stick with the Inquisition that I'm used to, but various other alternatives are more valid than ever before. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. Have the Miko buffs made you consider actually giving this team a try? Let me know in the comments. Otherwise, hope you guys enjoyed. If you liked this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more Genshin Impact content, and as always, until next time, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.
I'm always watching.
That's more like it. Reverse.
Illusion shattered, torn to oblivion. Quiver! Join the front! Right now. Right here. A sight to behold. Shine down. Now you shall perish.
So you'd rather wallow in this rotten, decaying world?